I think the one biggest thing that you get from ballet as well is learning that discipline, that consistency of showing up. I think that's the thing I can tell compared to other people that don't have that background. I can see how I definitely have that benefit of constantly having discipline in whatever I do. It's one of the biggest parts, I believe.
So lovely to talk to you, and you're in London.
Yes. Since 5 years now, almost.
I can't believe it. I mean, it feels like just the other day when I saw you on stage here at the Staats Ballet.
Yeah.
A lot has changed in the years. And did you leave before COVID?
I left during COVID. So I was there. Basically, when COVID started was my last few months in the company. And then, so I left 2020, summer 2020.
Was that a big transition? Because at that time, everything was so uncertain. And it's quite a big move then to go from Vienna to London.
Yeah, because I made the decision before COVID happened, obviously.
Okay.
And then when everything was happening, I was still obviously staying positive, but it was definitely a bit of a challenge because of all the uncertainty. Also, I arrived in London, I had to lock down. It was very hard to connect with anyone in the company. Performances kept getting cancelled, so it took forever to have my debut with the company. It was definitely a bit of a challenge, but I never really saw it like that as it happened, if that makes sense. I was kind of just living in the moment and trying to make the best of it. But now thinking back on it, it was definitely not the easiest or most convenient way to start somewhere.
But many people also say that time made them reflect a little bit about what they're doing and why they're doing it. So did you also have that at that time to think about it?
For sure, yeah. There was a lot more time to sit at home and reflect. I definitely agree. I think there was a lot of moments, especially for artists, where you kind of start to doubt what we're doing. Is it going to last? What's the future of our profession? So there was a lot of that type of thinking. But I also try to avoid that a little bit in the sense that it just wouldn't go anywhere. I think the more you think about these type of questions, you realize that there's not much you can do with those thoughts. I think the only thing that I could do, especially in the first lockdown, is when I did my Pilates certification. So I just used that time to do something new and to get certified in something that can benefit me for the future. Yeah.
And but you have also now delved into a lot of things. I see you do stunt work, and this is what really fascinated me, because the world from a ballet world to stunt work is such a huge, well, it feels like such a huge step, but it's actually also choreographed and it's also movement.
Yeah, I think there's similarities. I mean, at this moment, I'm mainly training to become a stunt person. I've done like small things, but I'm not in the world yet, as my goal is to be like fully in there. But I can definitely see the similarities. And I have to say, in all the categories I'm training at, there is things from being a dancer that definitely translate to it. The learning steps, the body awareness, the understanding movement and learning movement is definitely helpful. It can also be a bit tricky sometimes to avoid going into the patterns of a dancer. So there's the positives and the negatives, but I definitely have a lot of advantages from it to learn physical things quicker. But yeah, it comes with challenges as well.
But you've been, so you've trained since a very young age in ballet. So how did this journey start for you? What age did you start ballet?
I started when I was 5 years old. So I was just doing, with 5, it's more like a small ballet school. You start nice and easy. But then, with 7, I went to the Vienna State Ballet School. And from there on, I started getting a bit more serious, more and more training. And I just, really loved it. Never stopped.
But initially, what was the sort of inspiration for doing ballet? I mean, at 5, was it just something to do, or was there really something that drove you to do it?
Initially, it was really just my parents thinking that I need to do some kind of sports already at a young age. So both me and my brother, we always had to do some type of movement. So my parents are always like, if you don't like ballet, quit ballet, but you need to find something else. And same for my brother, whichever sport he did, anytime he quit that sport, he needed to find a new one. So it was important for them that we do some type of movement. So they put me into that ballet school in the little town we were living in, and I just really liked it.
Where was that? Where is that?
In Kaisermühlen in Vienna, but like in more of the outside districts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's where kind of it started for them, just to give me something to do as a kid, to put my energy into something. And I happened to like it. I happened to not swap sports that much, actually, and stick to ballet and keep going because it was going really well. I started enjoying it. And that's kind of how it happened.
Well, you were, still are a beautiful dancer, but you were at a very young age already in the company, from the school, taken from the school, in the company, and also a very young principal dancer.
Yeah, it all went really fast, to be honest. I don't even think about it that much, but it was because when I was about 16 or 15, Manuel wanted to hire me into the company, and my parents were like, no, you have to finish the school first. So I skipped a year in school, I skipped a year in ballet, and I graduated with 17. And then Manuel hired me with 17. And from there on, it was like pretty much every 2 years I got promoted for the next rank. And it was kind of like continuous steps up. And it went really fast in a way, but also a dancer's career is really short. So even though it went really fast, it did feel like a long journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but did that put a lot of pressure on you in a way? Because it's at a young age that you really had to do quite big roles, I remember, and demanding, physically also demanding on you. So did you sometimes feel pressured?
There's definitely moments where it felt like I had to live up to a certain standard. And I think the more you do one principal role, you're quite young, and say it goes really well, you set the standard, and then you get another opportunity, you definitely have that pressure to have that same standard again. But it never really felt that much of pressure in a way that I think when you're so in it and you're concentrating on what you have to do, you sometimes forget what's actually going on. And then later, when you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was actually really intense.
You had a lovely company director, Manuel Legris, and the support that you got from him as well. So that must have been such a great boost also for you.
Yeah, I think that was the only reason why I stayed in Vienna for this many years. I always wanted to explore other countries, other companies, but it was because of Manuel being such a brilliant director, such a great support, and really pushing me and a few other dancers in the company to such a great place and giving us so many opportunities, yet being so strict with us in a way that it wasn't just like he was giving us gifts. It was also like he was asking a lot from us in a very good way. So he was definitely, it was lucky to have him for sure. I definitely thank my career to him for most of it.
And can you see now that because you moved on then to English National Ballet,
Hmm.
and can you see that these times at the Vienna State Ballet with this leadership and the sort of the work that you had to put in, that helped you to the next phase of your career?
It definitely helped. I think coming from Vienna with Manuel as a director already opened all the doors in the world because everyone knows him and values him for his directorship, for his career. So it definitely opened the doors, and it definitely helped as well from everything I've learned from him to move on with the knowledge he's passed on.
But life from Vienna to London is quite a step.
Yeah. It
So,
is, yeah.
yeah, and you had the COVID thing also, that you said that you
Yeah.
couldn't settle in that quick where you normally would. But
Yeah.
otherwise, how did you? Because it's from where you come from, it is a big step to go to London. So how did you find that then? Overall life.
I, yeah, apart from the COVID situation, because I think when I first moved to London, I've been to London several times before that, and it didn't feel like moving to London because everything was closed and everything was so
Oh
different.
yeah. Mm.
Given the fact that London's one of the most busy cities and that's what it's known for, that's what makes London London, is that there's always things happening, and there was nothing happening when I got there. So it didn't feel like London at first, but obviously as time passed, it returned to London being London. And that's when I really started loving it. And I adjust very quickly in general, but the city definitely grew on me, the people, the energy and the vibes, and the fact that you can do everything you want basically, and you'll find groups to do that. You'll find support systems. There's so many different people, so many interesting minds and professions that whatever you choose to do, I feel like in London you'll find a community for it.
Amazing. And I must say, the times when I saw you and known you here and know how your career developed, I would never, ever have thought that I would speak to you now about stunt work, because I would think, such a petite, and you were such a petite dancer, and so much grace on stage always, and you always see stunt work as a little bit like, like
Yeah,
masculine almost. So
definitely.
how did this happen that you got into the interest in
Yeah.
that?
So what happened is that when I slowly started to get away with my thoughts from ballet and I wanted to slowly do other things, my first dream was to become an actor. And I was like, let's do it. I went to an acting school, and then I loved it. And obviously, I still do want to do acting, but the world is really tough in getting opportunities and it is a bit tricky. It's a lot of luck involved as well. So, as I was in acting school, there was one day where we had fight training, like fight for film. And I loved it so much. I was like, wow, this is so fun. And then I found a school in London that teaches fight for acting, like screen combat and stage combat. And I was like, well, let's have a go. I'll do like an unarmed combat week intensive and see how I like it. And I really liked it. So I started doing more and more courses, different weapon systems, really started to get into it. started really enjoying that work, because it gave me a chance to, first of all, use my new passion with acting, but also use my old passion with movement and using my body, because I think that was the only thing I was missing a little bit with acting, was that there is movement involved, but not as intense. And I'm used to being an athlete. I'm used to being, on my feet 8 hours a day, working really hard. So that's definitely a component you start missing when you don't dance full time in a company. So when I started doing all this intense movement, I think it's filled that spot in my heart. And so I started kind of slipping into it. And then I had like a background action role in a movie recently, and met a lot of stunt people on set. And that kind of convinced me, talking to them, spending so many hours around them, seeing what they do, listening to their journeys and what they've achieved, really inspired me to make that step to really start training for it, like in a more intense and driven way. It's still very much the beginning. It's so much to do to get to that type of life. It is like ballet. It's not like you just decide to do it and then a month later you are a professional dancer. It does take a lot of training, a lot of different skill sets. So I just, for now, made the decision to like really get into it. I started martial arts and gymnastics and scuba diving. So loads of different things. And that's just the beginning. So it's definitely a journey ahead. But I feel like I'm just enjoying to do all these things at the moment. But yeah, hopefully I get to use all the skills I'm training right now.
To a few stuntmen from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Never to a stunt woman before, but what they say to me, and they all say that woman makes the best stunt woman, because for some reason women have this resilience, and they can take pain much better. And like they all said, men can sort of pad themselves up, whereas women, when they have to do a scene, they usually dressed in little, like a little skirt or something. So they have to take the beating so much more.
Yeah, it really depends. I feel like from what I've experienced so far, it is definitely a lot more out there for men. There's definitely more stunt jobs for men, because most of the time, violent movies or even non-violent movies, there's always a policeman, there's always military, there's always some type of fights. There's definitely less opportunity for women, but there's also less women in the industry. And it really depends on the character. I feel like there's a lot of stunt doubling as well. And it depends on the character, what you're supposed to do. It's such a big variety in challenges.
And I think absolutely that you can see that with ballet and with many of these art forms, it takes such a lot of time, such a lot of investment also in
Yeah.
getting yourself there and training and learning from others. And wonderful that you have that outlook, and you can see where you're going to.
I think the one biggest thing that you get from ballet as well is learning that discipline, that consistency of showing up. I think that's the thing I can tell compared to other people that don't have that background. I can see how I definitely have that benefit of constantly having discipline in whatever I do. It's one of the biggest parts, I believe.
And do you think also, because at the time you did your ballet training, I mean, there was nothing like that in your life, like there was no cross training, it was all ballet training. Do you think there's a possibility, or there's a sort of an idea that even for dancers this could be beneficial for them, for their body strength, or can you see that it can be a benefit also for a dancer?
Yeah, I definitely already feel like since I've started training different disciplines, I've gotten a lot stronger. There's benefits and also negatives to it, because obviously certain sports, when you really practice them to a high extent, you also get a lot stronger in a way that you may lose flexibility. But I think that's where it comes into like make clever choices to go to a certain extent, because it's like, I think if you think about it, if you go to the gym and start lifting weights once, you're not going to get huge. But if you do it once a week, you're still not going to get huge. You're still not going to bulk up, but it may be really beneficial for your body. Or if you do some boxing and you get speed and really good core strength. So I do think cross training for ballet dancers could be really helpful, but I think it has to be made with like clever choices. So like, how much do you do of which sport, and how, to what extent, which sport for which person. I feel like there's also a difference, because maybe someone who already has naturally strong arms doesn't necessarily need to train that as much, but maybe does something else. But I think it really helps for the body overall, because the problem with ballet is that it is so specific. And there's so many injuries, and it is because we always work in ballet is not necessarily the most healthy shapes for the body. We're not born to always do everything turn out and all the ways ballet is moving. So I think doing other sports, getting other muscles stronger that we don't necessarily use in ballet, definitely helps also to avoid injuries and to just overall become a stronger performer and athlete.
And what was initially, you said you started moving out of the ballet world. So was it a gradual thing? Was it something that you thought of a lot, or was it just a sudden change where you thought, I want to explore other things?
I think I've always wanted to explore other things. That was always in the back of my head, but my career was always going really well. I was very happy. You get one opportunity after another. You do different ballets. You kind of get stuck in that world where you don't really think about getting out of it. And then I think my last years at EMB, because of like the scheduling and things being cancelled in the first years, and then also in the last years, like quite repetitive performances. Like I've done Swan Lake and Nutcracker for so many years of my life now. And it was like, if there's one new ballet a year, it was kind of like, what am I working towards? I definitely played with that thought of, it felt like being stuck in a loop a little bit. I wasn't excited anymore as much. It was more of a push. I started being unhappy in work in general. I didn't enjoy it as much anymore, even though I do love dancing still. I love moving that way. It's such a beautiful sports and art form. But I think it just came to a point where I just didn't see where I was going anymore. It felt like there was not much left to achieve to commit another 10 years of my life
Oh, yeah.
doing similar things. So in English National Ballet, there was a big shift. The director changed, and already the last time the director changed in Vienna, I left because it's always like, it's a lot changing. Director changes, people change. And I think when the director changed in EMB, I was like, right, let's see what comes next in my life. And I wasn't thinking necessarily about giving ballet up straight away, but I thought to just start freelancing. I went to New York. I did a performance there in Chicago, and just like stayed in America for about half a year, and then got back to London. I was like, okay, I can keep freelancing, but I thought, let's first take a time off for going to acting school. So I took that time off, and then I still did some performances here and there. So it was kind of like an on-off situation, but slowly drifting out of it. And then I think it is a weird thing, because you think, oh, I'm going to kind of keep going, but the less you do, the less opportunities start coming up as well. It's kind of like shifting, and it's almost like you don't do it on purpose, but it's almost like in the back of your head, you kind of initiating that change. So I think by just doing less and less, I started not accepting certain performances, because when you're freelancing, either you freelance all the time, you're in shape, you're ready, or it has to be really worth it. Because if I'm taking some time off and then someone offers me a big gala performance where I have to be in top ballet shape, and then you haven't danced since 2 months, let's say, it means I have to train up for this. So it becomes a lot bigger of an effort to do that type of job. If I'm in a company, I would just say yes, I would go. It's a week prep, maybe I would go and do it. Brilliant, nice money for that. But if if you're not in it all the time, then it's just not paid enough for me to now go and train up for it again, to spend a month or two preparing for something. It just becomes quite out of proportion in that sense. Yeah. So I think that's why slowly I started drifting out. And I'm not fully done, in a sense that I still took some ballet classes sometimes. I have some potential like music videos coming up. I still dance when I feel like it's worth it for my own purpose. So yeah, it's definitely still part of my life in one way or another, but not in the same way as it used to be.
But, I think it's so wonderful that you have the choice to step out, to make this transition. It's not forced on you, it's not as if you had an injury and suddenly your whole world collapsed and where do I go now? So you haven't mentally prepared, but you have the chance to mentally prepare and get yourself gradually into, a new direction where you also use all these skills. I think this is such a great story. I love this. I love that you because so many people always have this negative idea of, oh yes, but what do you do after ballet? Or it's as your world will end, if you're not dancing. And you just prove that there's a whole new world that you can go into, and a career, and you can use all these skills that you had during your time as a dancer.
Definitely. I think the scary part is, as a dancer, is that we committed so many years of hard training. And then to do something new, it's almost like our brains are telling us, like, I've already done all this hard work, I'm tired now. And I think that's where most people stop and go the a bit shorter or easier routes of doing something that doesn't require as much training again. Because I think what we've been through, most people can't imagine how much we've put in as kids, as adults. Like, I think even athletes, like even martial artists don't often train anywhere near as much as we train to be ballerinas. It's actually crazy how much time we put in. So I do understand, for most people, that's kind of like when you end your career, you're like, I can't do this again in a
Mm.
different
Oh.
sense. So it is definitely, it's a very personal thing, I think, for people making decisions. It
Mm.
is very scary after being in this world for so long. To do something new is quite a big step because of all the commitment we have put into something, and also where you get to. You are such a professional to such a high level, and you are also seen as that, you know. And
Yeah.
then you come to a different industry and you're no one. You're no one. You're not really good at it at first. It is definitely a hurdle, like a mental thing, and I feel like that's just very personal to everyone if they are ready to do that or not.
Mm. And a lot has been talked about the transition for dancers, and also, like you say, sometimes it's that it's a bit scary to step out of this world because you've started at such a young age. So you started at 5. So for most of your life, you've just known this dream,
Okay.
and not a lot of other careers apart from musicians. You don't find a lot of other careers where you start at such a young
Mhm.
age, committing yourself
Yeah.
uh, to this art form. So I understand completely what you mean. But do you
Mhm.
think also a lot of dancers are unhappily stuck, but just because
Yeah.
they can't see, uh, something else?
I think definitely I've seen it with most of the dance world that
Mm.
I think dancers are a lot more insecure than they often seem from the outside. So making a step to most dancers is just so scary. Like they may talk a lot about it, but actually doing it, it's another thing. And it's not just leaving the ballet world and making a step in the other direction. That's obviously a big thing. But even the smaller version of this, a lot of dancers that are very unhappy in their companies with their directors talk about it all the time, talk about leaving, yet never leave. So I've seen it with so many dancers. It's really crazy. In every company I've been to, whether I've worked there or guested there, I've been around so many companies, so many dancers, and all the dancers that are talking about how unhappy they are, yet don't leave because they're scared. Because people are so scared about the comfort you have in, say, you're in a company for many years and you are unhappy and you want to leave to another company, but the fear of being rejected is
Oh,
so
yeah.
big that people don't make the step and they rather stay unhappy. They rather stay in a place where they're unhappy but safe
Mm.
than making the step to be happier, but maybe risking that you get rejected from one or two places. But people are very insecure about this. And I've seen it with dancers just so much that a lot of people just choose to stay in places they don't want to be, simply because they're scared of that step.
Mm. And it's also there's only so many ballet companies, and it's also about
Yeah,
what the director wants. So it's
yeah,
not necessarily because of how good you are, but it's just
yeah.
because of the preference of the
The style, yeah,
director. Mm.
exactly. But yeah,
But now in this world that you're moving in now, this is also very interesting. I mean, from what I've heard from the stunt men that I talk to,
hmm,
it seems like it's such a loyal, there's such a loyal
yeah.
people, professionals, and also respect for the
Mhm.
industry, respect for each other. So can you already sense that from starting out there?
Yeah, from everything I've just seen and witnessed at this moment, it's definitely um, groups of people working together all the time. It's always the same people. So you kind of just have to hope that eventually you're going to get in one of these groups and get different opportunities, because definitely their stunt coordinators will always use the same people that they know, that they can trust. It is a bit tricky to get in at first. I can definitely see that being a hurdle to get your way in, but there's also a lot of opportunity, and it depends what they're looking for, what times So there's
Yeah.
still that component of luck, which I guess is in every industry and everything you ever do. You need a little bit of luck to stumble across the right people and to maybe be the right look, the right skill at the right
Oh, yeah.
time. So it's definitely people being definitely very loyal to their people in that industry. But yeah, it's also nice to see that people have that, like, those groups that stick together. So it's a positive thing in many ways, but also negative when you're new, because
Oh, yeah.
you want to
You
find
have
a
to
place.
prove yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but so you said that you're doing martial arts, you're training in specific stunt work, but also what one of the stunt coordinators told me is that stunts have become very specialized. So you get people doing specific stunts, but then very, very specialized. So do you already can you already see in which direction you want to go?
It's different in LA and in the UK as well, because in
Okay.
LA, there's a lot of great training. There's a lot of brilliant stunt people, but they have a different system in the sense that if you are very good at what you do, they eventually hire you. In the UK, it can be similar to this, but they also have something called the British Stunt Register, which is what I'm trying to train for, which you have to have 6 categories to a very high extent to be on it, and then they can choose you from those books. So it's a bit different, and then the categories you trained in could be the ones they'll choose you in, and then I guess,
I see.
given your career, the more you do in a certain skill set, that's kind of when you start to become specialized in one thing more than another. I believe, for me personally, looking at all the competition that's out there, obviously I want to do all the same things, all the cool stunts. But I think in the end of the day, if everything goes well and if I achieve what I want to achieve, I am hoping to use my background of, like, the way I do movement and, like, being able to execute things in a very beautiful and controlled way people wouldn't be able to. So I would like to do every type of stunt, but I also hope that I am gonna be specialized in being a certain performer that's very different to other movement styles. So I hope to be able to use that for my advantage to stick out in some way.
Yeah. And do you have to do acting as well? Is that also part of the requirements?
Yes, they have, like, a requirement that you've done some type of drama school, and if not, you have to do their course and stuff like that. You definitely need a bit of an acting background, but not as much as, like, being an actor. Depends what you do. For a lot of times, you don't really have to talk as a stunt performer. They keep that quite separate.
Oh, okay. And is it painful, this training? I mean, compared to ballet?
It's very different. It's just a lot of mental hurdles. Like, for example, gymnastic is definitely challenging for me because as physical as ballet is, we never jumping upside down. It is a different, it is just such a scary thing that you can land on your neck, because in ballet you're not really in that situation that much. So it's very different training approaches, very different ways of thinking. It's a lot of mental blocks as well, to stop yourself from doing something upside down, and then you could hurt yourself. But physically speaking, it is really intense, but I wouldn't necessarily say more than ballet, because you do train to be safe. You do train to not hurt yourself, basically. So in the end of the day, if you do everything the way you should, it should be, do good for the body. It shouldn't be too bad. It shouldn't be too dangerous. It shouldn't be like you're hurting yourself all the time, because that's when you're doing something wrong. But yeah, to be honest, compared to ballet, like, we're used to such a drill, to so much pain that you don't see, that I think nothing really compares to that in that sense.
But you say, but like you say, it's mentally you can work through it. You can
Yeah.
get on with it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think it's just the difference of when you're used to working a certain way in ballet, where we build up on a skill, we make it nicer and pretty and so detailed, and then all of a sudden it's about not really the detail most of the time, but just like throwing yourself into a skill that's just a bit scary at first. And I think it's that shift of thinking where you have to just mentally be like, all right, let's just do it, which you don't really need that in ballet.
What are people's reactions there where you train when they hear you're a dancer, ballet dancer? Because people have a stigma, sort of a stigma about ballet dancers.
I think it depends. It's very different on where I train. I feel like in martial arts, people love it. It's a very positive thing in what I do because, for example, Taekwondo is very much about flexibility, and they love beautiful lines and high legs. So I feel like it just fits right in. So anyone's very jealous every time we do stretches, and people are like kind of jealous of where I'm already at the starting point because I don't have to work for that at all, or also in certain strengths and stuff like that. So it depends on where it goes. And then in other places, I have to stop myself from looking like a ballerina unarming someone with a gun. You know what I mean? So it is definitely like, it depends where. People react differently. Some people are very impressed. Some people don't really think much about it, I think. Like, I don't think a lot of people also know. I think the people that know what it means to be a ballet dancer have very high respect and show that. And then some people that don't know much about ballet will acknowledge it and be like, that's cool, but they don't think much about it or don't really know the background and what it takes to be a dancer.
So, and you also mentioned that you still do some ballet, still do ballet, or still do some dancing. And can you, is there like you find with when you do stunt work, there's sort of this crossover where you can use some of what you've learned in ballet, but can you now also feel differently when you dance?
I feel very different. Yeah, I do feel a lot stronger, a lot stronger. I feel like, and stamina wise, I found ballet like nothing. I don't get tired at all taking a ballet class. It is just different muscles. So I would say, in a way, I feel a lot stronger. But because I don't do ballet regularly at this moment, I do feel when I do ballet, for example, my feet are not as strong. They get tired quicker because you don't train your feet in anything else that much like you do in ballet. Like point is definitely a lot harder when you don't do it regularly. Or lifting your legs, like when I'm still as flexible, but it's like sometimes like going to the back when your back muscles develop more in other sports, you do realize that your arabesque gets a little bit lower at first. That's definitely things that you do realize. But in other ways, I do feel a lot stronger. I feel a lot more compact and quicker. My muscles feel definitely more developed in that sense that I feel like from doing all these other things, I'm in such good fitness that if I were to train back into doing ballet more intensively, I think it would go really quickly. I think for the most part, I would just have to get my feet back into strength for point, especially. Without point, it's fine. I think it's the point shoes in general that require that strength and pain that you have to get over when you haven't used them for a while. I think that will be the biggest part, but I do feel a difference for sure.
And you mentioned also that you do scuba diving. And I actually spoke to a dancer, a underwater dancer. She does dancing underwater, and she talks about the movement that has to be so slow, and because the water of the water, you know, sort of the pressure of the water. But in the water, do you also find that builds your strength?
I've only just started, to be honest.
Oh,
I've only
okay.
had like 2 sessions at this moment. I can't see that much yet. For now, it's
Okay.
all just brain and remembering what do you do in an emergency? How do
Okay.
you breathe? Where's your buoyancy control? Where's what? I think it's more of that at the moment.
Oh,
There's not
okay.
much freedom yet in exploring movement underwater. I'm not really at this point yet. Also for scuba diving, you're wearing so much gear. I
Oh,
don't
of
know
course. Mm,
how much movement you can do with
mm,
everything that's on your back. So it
mm,
is less of that. It's more of like a skill
mm.
mentally and breathing, and it's very different.
Wow, but it all sounds so exciting, really. Such a great transition that you made, and so inspirational, really, Natascha. I admire you so much for what you've done,
Thank you.
and really that you stepped out of this world because you had such a great career. You're such a beautiful dancer, and yet you were not scared to try something new and pursue something else.
Yeah, thank
Mm.
you.
But what is the wish? What are the wishes? What is the big dream now for you?
I think the big dream is doing some incredible movies, getting some nice opportunities, just keep using my body for work. It's just really fun. But then also in the future, maybe giving back to communities, creating spaces where people can train.
Oh yeah.
I think that's one of my dreams as well because I'm teaching Pilates on the side as well. I'm just involved with movement all the time, and I feel like, especially being in London, you try to get different skill sets. You just find yourself be on the tube all the time,
Mm,
going from one place to another. So I feel like in the future, if I was able to create a space for people like me, similar people who have different dreams and skills they want to learn, even if that's not for being a stunt person, even if that's for actors or dancers,
mm,
in a way to like have a building that has a bit of everything in it that you can do, like community and different sports, different, um, yeah. I think that could be, I mean, that's a big dream because that's
mm.
a lot
No,
of
but
planning, but that's definitely one of the things that's also on my mind for like a future bigger dream that's not
mm.
anywhere near for now.
No, but you have to dream big. You have to. But what a great idea because you now know firsthand how it is to go from one place and looking for
Yeah,
all these things. So it would be great if it's one place where you can do all these different things.
yeah,
And like you say, it doesn't have to be just for stunt training. It can be for other
yeah,
experiences as well.
yeah. That's it. Even for people that don't want to do any of that, sometimes it's like I found that with acting, when I went to acting school, I was like, I feel like everyone should go to acting school, even if they don't want to be an actor, because you just learn so much about yourself, like psychologically, you grow so much as a person. So just offering a space where people can also, do acting classes is, even if they don't want to be an actor, or do martial arts, even if they don't want to be a black belt in taekwondo, but just like I feel like it's so great for people to maybe have that space where you can do more than one thing and just help yourself grow as a person.
Well, that comes to my dream that I believe that all children have to have that in the education system. And you
Yeah.
were talking about the discipline that ballet brought along with
Mm.
you, and this is my whole point about why art's not taught in schools,
Yeah.
alongside maths and sciences, because it's so helpful. And like you say, drama for children, even if they don't become actors or
Yeah.
actresses, but to have that skill set and movement and music and all that, that's so
Mm.
part of us, and that can bring all these transferable skills.
Yeah. And it makes you also aware of for example, acting, like you learn so much about behaviors and reaction that you start observing people and learning from people in a way that even in that aspect, I feel like you learn to treat people differently because you start reading people better in reactions, emotions. So it's just like general like learning. I think that would just like help people communicate better to each other in certain situations as well.
You know, all the actors or actresses I talk to say the same thing, that you start also having more empathy with people because they react a certain way. So you sort of try to figure out or try to understand why they do that. So that's true. That would bring along more compassion, I think, in life.
I agree. Yeah.
But Natascha, thank you so much for your time. It was so great to talk to you. I admire you so much, and I'm so glad I saw what you did, a few posts with Suzanne with her her page, and I was so happy to see that, and it just thought, now I have to talk to you and hear the story.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That was great.
Great pleasure.